Did you know that Melbourne was nearly called Batmania? Yes, you heard it right, like the superhero Batman. But that's just the start of the fascinating story of this Aussie gem. Melbourne, with over 5 million population, is the capital of state of Victoria and second largest city of Australia. But how did the story of Melbourne, the coffee capital, start? Picture this. It's the early 1800s and John Batman, a successful farmer in northern Tasmania, stumbles upon a spot that he deems the perfect place for a village. That spot, ladies and gentlemen, is none other than Melbourne as we know now. But the tale doesn't end there. You see, Mr. Batman was so carried away with his discovery that he fancied naming the city after himself. Batmania. Do you like that heroic name? Let us know in comments. Anyway, after a series of debates, the city was named Melbourne after the British Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne. So Melbourne narrowly escaped the life of being called Batmania. Anyway, on the 6th of June 1835, Batman signed a deal with 8 Wurundjeri elders to buy a chunk of land around Melbourne. But let's rewind a bit more. Before European hustle, the Kulin people called this land home for 40,000 years when Batman came knocking, which was the start of a big change. Next chapter in Melbourne's history is the Gold Rush. From Batmania to Goldmania, Melbourne has it all. This is not an exaggeration because the story of Melbourne is indeed a tale of transformation. And a significant chapter of this story is the Gold Rush era. Melbourne wasn't always cafes and trams. It all began in the mid-1800s with a gold rush. People flooded in, transforming the city from sleepy town to a boom town. The accelerated population growth and the enormous wealth of the goldfields fueled a boom which lasted for 40 years. People from everywhere brought their A-game, their food, their traditions, you name it. From Chinese markets to European cafes, Melbourne turned into a melting pot of awesomeness. The city got a facelift that'd even make a Kardashian jealous. Victorian buildings popped up left and right, giving the city that classy, vintage vibe we still dig today. This period also saw a significant architectural revolution. The newfound wealth made a wave of construction with grand public buildings, luxuriant theatres and fancy houses cropping up across the city. This era also saw the construction of the first railway in Australia in 1854. But let's keep it real, it wasn't all sunshine and gold nuggets. The gold rush was tough, man. Dreams were made and broken, struggles were real, but Melbourne stood tall. Now let's turn another page of Melbourne history. After the Federation of Australia in 1901, due to long delays in establishing a permanent capital at Canberra, Melbourne served as the interim capital until Canberra became the permanent capital in 1927. But during World War II, even though Canberra was the official capital, Melbourne stole the spotlight as the hub for military. The city boomed thanks to wartime jobs and an influx of American troops. After the war, a wave of Europeans from Eastern and Central Europe flooded in, followed by folks from Italy, Greece, and the Netherlands. These newcomers reshaped Melbourne's culture and lifestyle, but the real game changer came in the 1970s, when the White Australia policy ended, opening the doors to Asian migration like never before. Melbourne saw its biggest wave of newcomers since the Gold Rush days, with folks from Vietnam, Cambodia, and China making their mark on the city. As we fast forward, there are some significant points in Melbourne's journey to modernity. One of them was the construction of the Melbourne Cricket Ground, known as MCG. Established in 1853, it is often described as the beating heart of this fantastic city, a shrine to Melburnians' love for the game. The next one on the list is the 1956 Olympics Games, which were hosted by Melbourne. The city became the first in the Southern Hemisphere to host the Olympic Games, which entered Melbourne into empire of modern world-class cities. Another significant milestone in Melbourne's journey was the establishment of the University of Melbourne in the mid-19th century, which has been a breeding ground for innovations. But what's happening to Melbourne today? Melbourne, which was named the Australia's most livable city in 2023, is a modern commercial and financial centre. Backed by its strong infrastructure, low crime rate, relatively clean downtown, it's no wonder why. Also in 2003, Melbourne was named as a UNESCO City of Literature. As you stroll through Melbourne streets, you're walking through history. It's like stepping into a time machine set to epic adventure mode. As we look ahead, we see a city that's not just growing, but evolving. A city that's not just building, but creating. A city that's not just moving, but progressing. And in this evolution, we see the true character of Melbourne, a city that's as rich in its future as it is in its past. In Melbourne, history isn't just something that happened, it's a living, breathing part of the city. That's what makes it so special. So why just hear about it when you can live it? Join the party in Melbourne, where history meets happiness, and while there, subscribe to our channel to stay tuned for our next journey.